It's the Unhappy Hour.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way Galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Unhappy Hour here on the TNAM Radio Network at thenewamericanmedia.com. My name is Brian Engelman, and I'm going to be your host, as I have been for the past 4+ years. Yes, it's been a long ride. All the way back when LeBron James was losing to the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah, I remember those were some of our first shows. And I think we spliced together a baby crying and along with the announcer saying that the Dallas Mavericks have defeated the Miami Heat. And we had a baby crying in the background. We laughed at LeBron. And now, oh, how funny things have shifted. Now that he's wearing our laundry, I'm rooting for him again. Good times, good times. But speaking of good times, it's good times if you're a Chicago Blackhawks fan. Yes. I'm uttering the nonsense known as the NHL. I have never gone this route before. Perhaps with Ben Weinbrower from Cleveland, and he lives in Chicago. I know he's a big hockey fan. We may have touched upon the issue, if ever so briefly, but now we have Craig Doyle is going to join us, and we're going to talk about the Chicago Blackhawks. And by we, I mean I'm going to ask a lot of questions because I don't know anything about hockey other than I think the nets should be bigger, icing shouldn't exist, and the games are fun live. But yeah, I guess, Cleveland not having a professional hockey team and me never playing it growing up, hey, that's 2 strikes, and, in my sport, I'm out on 2 strikes. I never got into hockey. So, I'm going to try to expand my horizons a little bit here, and we're going to talk some hockey with Craig Doyle. You can follow him at that Craig Doyle, CraigDoyle on Twitter. But first, make sure you check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. On the right-hand side, it's 3 things. Number 1 is TNAM Radio. It's got a flag there, and that's where you click play to listen live. When do we go live? We go live when I say we go live. Like, 10:23 on the left coast, because we want to talk some hockey and bring in somebody that knows his stuff, because that's all he does is post about the Blackhawks. But yeah, so that's where you check out our page and listen live. Underneath that is our Twitter and our Facebook feed. On Facebook, you can do a search for The New American Media with spaces in between and then like our page. And also on Twitter, we're at American_media_. That's all on our homepage. Final thing, subscribe, youtube.com/The New American Media. And guess what? If you find some of the videos that you like, any of the radio shows, if you let those little advertisements play, it's like throwing a little penny into our wishing well. And thousands of pennies later, it helps us pay some of our overhead to keep this show on the road. So thank you for that. All right, Mr. Craig Doyle, thank you very much for joining the program. I think we go way back to, I think we were in the media back in high school. Would you call it that? Weren't we in the same, we wrote for the same publication back in the day?
I believe it was the esteemed publication known as the Devil Ear, I think it was called. And what was the name of the teacher that taught that? I'm blanking right now, but I can see him in my head. He called basketball players cagers, though. I remember that. He was to the new terms.
I loved him, and I'm drawing a blank, too.
That's Clark?
That sounds about right, yeah. That sounns about right.
All right, we'll just say Clark now, and if it's wrong, we'll correct it later.
Yeah, all those people online, I'm sure somebody, like maybe Greg Moore when he listens. By the way, did you know Greg Moore's doing a radio show on our network now?
No, I had no clue.
Yeah, he just started.
He's always been a funny guy, so it wouldn't surprise me. He's always been an entertaining cat. Even back, I remember in 8th grade, in Ms. Joe's health class, we had to do some sort of, I don't even know what the purpose of the exercise was. We had to do some sort of TV we did do a TV or radio advertisement, and we came up with a product called Spiffy deodorant, and he was just in the background the whole time going, "It's Spiffy." So yeah, he's always been.
No, that's awesome.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I had my graduation party at my house, and I remember we were in the basement. Our band was performing, and before we went on stage to perform, Greg was out there with a microphone doing stand-up, trying to warm up my aunts and uncles. It was absolutely hilarious listening to him bomb from down in the basement. It was so funny. But yeah, he always has been funny. But you had a comedic route as well. Tell us about kind of that journey you traveled for a little bit there.
it was just one of those things where, like, I was such a dork in high school that, the main defense, like, you hear this a lot, but one of my main defense mechanisms was, to avoid getting in a fight. Maybe if I make the guy laugh, he'd just giggle and walk away. So I think it started there. And then, just throughout college and, we went to college together, obviously, at Bowling Green. So, I got into some shenanigans there, and I always had people trying to, like, convince me to go to open mic nights and do this and that. And I never really got into it. I never bought it. But it was back in 2002. Two things happened simultaneously. One, a buddy of mine got me to go see Jay Moore at the Cleveland Improv, where I now work. And two, another friend of mine introduced me to this little radio show out of New York at the time called Opie and Anthony, and I heard this guy named Jim Norton on the radio, and he was saying some of the most unbelievable stuff you could ever hear, and I was like, wait, you can make a living doing that? That's amazing. That was just amazing.
Yeah.
So, 3 months after, my friends and I went to go see Jay Moore up at the Cleveland Improv. 3 months later, they came and saw me on the same stage, and, for a while it was good. I did about 11 years being a road comic. I got to travel around 46 states, 2 countries. I mean, the 2 countries just Canada and Mexico.
Talk it up. 2 entire countries, folks.
Yeah. Very fancy spots in Mexico, mind you. Anytime you get to mention Tijuana and Juarez and walk out of there, you feel proud. So, but it was a cool run, and then now I'm managing the club that I first started at. So it's a very cool thing to be doing, and I'm very fortunate to be doing it.
Yeah, it goes full circle. I played in my band, and it took us around Michigan and Ohio and down in St. Louis, and we went around.
Quit bragging.
Yeah. But it landed me out here. It was funny. We moved out here as a band. We played one show, and then we broke up, and then we all went different directions. It's like, wow, that was a weird little journey. But it's funny you say Jay Moore because he's doing a sports show, and you said Greg Moore. It's spiffy. He's doing a show called Sports and More with Greg Moore. Anyway, it's just pretty funny how everything kind of coalesces together. But that's what I always envisioned the Unhappy Hour to be. It's being out here on the left coast, 3 different time zones away. You kind of lose track of people that you would normally shoot the crap with talking sports, and it's like, no, let's just reconnect, get a little phone call going, and talk about some sports. And this was a great opportunity because you just always blow up your Facebook timeline with Chicago Blackhawks stuff and hockey stuff, and it's really like a different language for me. But to recap,
well, also if I can interject,
may.
Cedar Point stuff. Sorry, you Magic Mountain fans, but whatever.
It's spiffy.
It's
yeah. No, but tonight the Chicago Blackhawks had a 2-0 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 6. They're bringing home the Stanley Cup. When I was briefly working at a talent agency, they were one of our clients, and everybody said, "Hey, go across the street. They have the cup over there." So I went over and got to touch a cup and get a picture taken, and it was pretty cool, I suppose.
Yeah.
But hey, man, talk to me about
amazing.
this.
Well, it's amazing. Like you're talking about seeing the cup and touching it. Like I only got one chance to see it up close, and first of all, it's amazing how dented up the thing is. Like it looks really nice on TV. They do a great job, like shining up. But it's such like the Stanley Cup is a weird history, and just like the things that have been like that have been disclosed to the public. Like way back in the day, a team won it, and in the beginning, it was thought so little of, like that this team left it in the photographer's studio and for like weeks, and the photographer's wife planted geraniums in it and just put it in the front window, like, oh, look at our nice plant thing, cool. There's been stories about it being drop kicked into a river up in Canada, and that's just the stuff we know. I mean, who knows what sort of abhorrent things in the throes of victory with alcohol and women around have happened with it. But
I have heard filthy things about this cup. I have heard you're giving me geraniums and going for a dip in the pond. Man, I've heard some really foul stuff about it. Do you have anything else that's a little bit more PG-13 and a little less Disney? We don't need to go Opie and Anthony, but something PG-13 in between.
Oh, trust me, we all look, let me put it this way. I'm pretty sure that if I were to ever drink from the Stanley Cup, it'd have to be nothing less than like 151 because I want something to sterilize it as, it's coming to me. Like, yeah, basically picture any sort of German or Japanese porn flick you've ever seen that's probably happened with the Stanley Cup. So,
Okay, we'll let the radio listeners take it from there. All right.
Use your imagination.
Yes, folks, it's spiffy. Well, talk to me about this season a little bit if you can here. Like, what was the ride like for the Blackhawks? Were they the favorites the whole time, or were they the underdog? Like, because I literally pay zero attention to hockey. Walk me through this season as a huge Blackhawks fan.
Well, I gotta go a little bit before this season. Like, I became, like, when I was a kid, I had one of those table hockey games. I don't know if you ever had one. It
Those
had
were
the metal
the
rods
best.
underneath it.
Those were the best.
Those were great. And the one my dad got me and my brothers when I was a kid, I believe it was like the Islanders and the Flyers. And, because that was a huge rivalry in the 80s. It was great. And on the side of it had all the logos of all the hockey teams at the time, and I loved the Blackhawks logo. But I didn't become a Blackhawks fan. I can't say I became a Blackhawks fan until about 1993, and that's when a game came out on Sega Genesis called NHL PA 93. And the best team in the game was the Chicago Blackhawks, led by Jeremy Roenick, who was just unstoppable. If you've seen the movie Swingers with Vince Vaughn, he has a line in there. It's like, it's not me, it's Roenick. He's good. That's where I really think where it kind of became to a next level for me as being a fan. I never really got much of a chance to play hockey growing up. I was a mediocre soccer and baseball player, and I had two brothers my parents couldn't beat, and in Cleveland at that time there wasn't a plethora of rinks around, so it would have been a lot of work just to get me there. So I'd have had to drop those other two. But yeah, my fandom kind of grew through those years. I mean, watching Jeremy Roenick play for the Blackhawks and Chris Chelios, Tony Amani, a lot of guys all three of those guys as mentioned were American-born players. So that was also something that attracted me to that team.
Let me just pause you right there. Let me just pause it right there as Jeremy Roenick and a couple of those other American-born players. I gotta say, you are so onto something though, because I had those games and I played those games. I don't know if Chuck E. Cheese had them for the lock-ins. I know that I had a table in my basement that I played all the time, and I'll tell you that I didn't have Sega Genesis, but I had the one for what would it be? Probably Super Nintendo. Whatever those NHL hockey games were, those things were so damn. I was always Mario Lemieux. I always liked the Penguins. Yeah. That was where I gravitated towards. But you're so right. I mean, I loved playing the little, table game, and I loved the video game. I just never played it. I put skates on me today. I couldn't really even skate. Hopefully I wouldn't fall down and break something.
Well, it's kind of like how FIFA is a huge selling sports title here. Tiger Woods Golf is a huge selling sports title here. Does that translate into... I mean, obviously soccer is a growing game in this country, but, I guarantee you a vast majority of people who play FIFA don't really watch soccer, haven't really played soccer. Same thing with Tiger Woods. I've golfed. I used to play Tiger Woods golf obsessively with my friends on PlayStation, and I've been golfing maybe 10 times in my life, tops, So I get what you're saying there. It's just, but as a medium to be able to draw people in, I mean, those games they were fantastic. They were fun to play, and they were pretty easy to pick up. I think that was the success of them.
Yeah, kind of like Mario Kart. Like those Mario Kart games, especially on the 64, you're just like, whoever you are, you jump in, and even if you suck, you're getting all the lightning bolts, and then it makes it real fun as you knock everybody else in the water. Or you get the
turtle shell. You get the turtle shell that has the homing beacon on it, or whatever, the guided turtle shell thing. So it makes it good.
Oh, of course, man. I can't even tell you how many nights we would all stumble home from the bars while I was in Bowling Green, and we would play Mario Kart till the sun came up. But yeah, I mean, I love those hockey games.
Train tracks.
I liked Rainbow Road. It was like, no, man, I can't handle this right now. No, man, I did too many shots. I can't play Rainbow Road. We're playing Rainbow Road.
Oh, God, yeah. No, not that one. Can we just do the one that does the circle? That's cool, thanks.
No, do the mushroom cup, man. Come on, you always do this. Yeah, well, anyway. I digress. So back to Jeremy Roenick. You grew up, you're a big fan of those American-born players back in, what'd you say, mid 90s or so.
Early to mid 90s and throughout the 90s. Like, you know, two of the worst days of my life growing up was when the Blackhawks traded Chris Chelios and Jeremy Roenick, and then the team kind of hit this dark period. They weren't competitive anymore. They were awful. I've been to a few Blackhawks teams in my life. You know, I've only been to one in Chicago at the United Center. It was 2006, and I mean, I honestly walked into the United Center and I could have picked Remember the days at the old municipal stadium here in Cleveland with the Indians, where you can like bring in like some coupon you cut off of like a 12-pack of Pepsi.
Yeah, you bring a Pepsi can in.
$1.
And
and
they better have fireworks.
Slider would walk you down your seat.
And they better have fireworks. They better have fireworks after the game, too, on top of it. And you'd get up in the nosebleeds and you go, all right, I've been here for what, one inning? Let's go sit right behind home plate. You'd be there with 76 other people. Oh, yeah. I remember yelling at Mark McLemore on the Baltimore Orioles. McLemore, you suck. McLemore. I just remember sitting out in the outfield. You were the closest person to me, so I'm just going to heckle you all. I think the extent of it was McLemore, you suck. I don't think we came up with anything Jim Norton-esque, if you will. But, I do remember those days very fondly. Unfortunately, Corey Snyder and Andy Allenson could only get us so far.
Oh, Corey Snyder was the dude, though, man.
Hey,
he was so awesome.
He had a cannon in the outfield. He could throw you out without even thinking about it.
I don't know if many people outside of Cleveland area like cherish Corey Snyder, but here, like, the guy could come in here, he wouldn't have to buy it. You know, if you went to a bar, you wouldn't have to buy a drink, even these days.
So you went to the United Center, and it was crappy. Those were the dark ages.
It was empty, you know. I don't even. It was just the franchise. They used to call the owner, the former owner. His nickname was Dollar Bill Wirtz. Back in the early 2000s, he hired a new GM. I think it was Bob Murray, who he wanted to present a plan for the Blackhawks to win the Stanley Cup, you know, within a couple of years. And he stopped them in the middle of his presentation and said, hey, I don't want to hear any talk about championships. They're too expensive. I mean, that's the type of guy they were dealing with. He was a guy who would black out all the home games. Like, you know, people in Chicago could not see their home team play on TV. He fired their popular TV announcer, Pat Foley. I mean, he was just a guy who really, to read back on it, it almost like he despised the fans and the players. He alienated. I mean, I know you're not a hockey guy, but I'm sure you heard of Bobby Hull.
Yeah, I've heard of him, yeah.
Okay, you've heard of him. Like, you know, he was a legendary Chicago Blackhawk. He alienated guys like him, Stan Mikita, and other guys from the franchise. It was looking real bleak. And then I'm going to go to hell for saying this, but a really fortunate thing happened. He died, and his son took over, Rocky Wirtz, and they had a couple good drafts. And in 2009, Chicago, made it to the Western Conference Finals. Against Detroit. They lost in 7 games. Detroit was clearly the better team, but you could see the potential there. And in 2010, the unthinkable happened. For the first time since 1961, Chicago won the Stanley Cup, and, like, you know, we all went bonkers, and we'd like, it's great, oh my God, we finally got one, cool. You go ahead a couple years, there was a couple seasons in 2013. It was a strike-shortened year, and Chicago started off the season like a bat out of hell. They won like 24, 25 straight games without losing.
Whoa. That's a good streak.
And, it's ridiculously good streak. And then all of a sudden, you know, so next thing you know, like after 2010, and after 2010,
hold on.
Pause.
Hold on. Pause on what they ran into in 2010. Come back to that. Did they win 25 games or did they not lose 25 games? Because I can't stand the tie.
They didn't lose 25.
See, now there's the asterisk. That's the other thing I can't stand about hockey and soccer is the 1-1 tie. I hate ties. After 3 hours, you got
There's
nothing to
no
show.
ties in hockey.
They're totally done with that?
Yeah, they go to shootouts now, which I actually like even less.
But I thought the shootouts could tie.
No, the shootouts can't tie.
How long has it been?
Since the tie's been in the NHL?
Yeah, So
I gotta assume
that's been abolished.
been-
The tie is gone forever in hockey.
No. They do something even dumber. Trust me, it's not a perfected thing yet. Like, I hate the shootout because, first of all, and don't get me started on a rant about basketball, but like, what I hate about it, and I grew up playing soccer, and I love soccer.
Yeah, that
but
was
I
your
hate,
sport.
like,
Yeah.
I hate how the World Cup can come down to penalty kicks, and I hate how hockey can come down to a shootout because you take a team game and all of a sudden you make it an individual. To me, that stinks. I just don't like it. So they did go 25 games without losing, but it was a good streak. But it wasn't a 25-game win streak, so I don't want to mislead you.
Okay.
But anyway, I skipped a little part. In 2010, kind of like the Florida Marlins did back in '97, they won the championship, and then they blew the team up. Chicago ran the salary cap problems. They had to kind of blow the team up, but they kept the core. So we're like, oh, this might be a while before we see. So anyway, like I said, 2013, start off the season amazing, strike shortened season, win the Stanley Cup Game 6 on the road in Boston, and we're like, oh my God, this is great. This team can do it. The following year, 2014, last year, great team, had everything put together. They're playing against Los Angeles in the Western Conference Final. They're home Game 7. They go to overtime. A deflected puck goes in. LA wins, and it was just devastating. It was just like, you lost on your home ice, blah, blah, blah. So coming into this season, there was a lot of optimism, but there was also a bit of trepidation. And they started off like a bat out of hell again at the beginning of the season, and then like in the doldrums of the year, like December, January, they really struggled. They had some injuries. Patrick King got hurt like in March. They were saying he wasn't even back to the second, third round of the playoffs. I mean, Patrick King's an amazing player. I mean, that's like, that'd be like hey, you lost Jordan for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, but he will be back. You just got to make it to that third round, and it's kind of like, well, without him, where's the guarantee?
Yeah, and Kane had an assist tonight and the second goal, right?
Yes, he did. And he came back first game of the playoffs this year and was just amazing. So, I mean, it was a lot of things. And this is what I love about hockey. It's like a lot of things can come together. Like I realize like hockey's never going to replace the NBA. It's never going to replace the NFL. I doubt it'll even replace Major League Baseball. In fact, I'll even go so far as to say is I can see it probably even it has happened on a youth level. Soccer will eclipse the popularity of the NHL, but that being said, it's just I only played hockey for a short period of time. I didn't get to play until I was older and I had a car, and then in college, playing for like fraternity teams and all that. It was the most fun I ever had playing a sport. It was just so amazing. Like I lack the words to describe when you're out there and you're on the ice and just like the sounds and the action and just the physicality of the game.
Hey, I'll tell you, if you lack the words, I'll jump in and say that, when I played football, because I played intramural basketball. We actually got the title in my senior year, which was neat. I played some baseball until it was like minor league to major league jump. I moved up a little too soon, and the game got too fast for me, and I just I kind of lost my baseball bearings. But when I found football, football was it, man. Tennis was great. Don't get me wrong. I loved playing tennis. For our varsity team, but football was just different. When you could just get out there, put on pads, and it was like, even if your guy was 6'7", 285, you knew that you were faster than him. You knew you could outthink him. Yeah. You knew that you could figure, if the guy was small, you knew you could bull rush him. You knew that you could like swat and swim, or you could hook him with your elbow and do a spin, and like the physicality and the chess game involved with playing football for me. I played defensive end, and I had I had 2 jobs. I could only pursue as deep as the deepest back, so I wouldn't get burned on a reverse or something, and nothing got between me and the sideline. I had like two jobs. Just do that, and then I can go tackle people, especially the quarterback. And I loved it. I loved playing so much. So I can relate to just when I was there, I was a fish in water. It just made so much sense. I loved it.
Well, that's the beauty of team sports, and like, wow, it's cool to do stuff as an individual. And I mean, I understand that NBA is a team sport. I think just that out of like, out of like the team sports out there, I think NBA has the most of the team sports focusing on the individual. If that makes any sort of sense. I just always
well,
loved
because there's
the
only
beauty
five
of,
people. There's only five people.
Yeah.
So in football there's
Yeah.
11.
So
So it's twice as not important. Now I'm not making sense either, but yeah, five people. I guess in tennis there's doubles. I played doubles. So
yeah.
a singular
But that's
sport.
the extent of it,
Yeah.
Typically in tennis, most people who've seen tennis, they even the cursory glance at it, it's just one-on-one thing. And that's what I love about team sports. I mean, there's a reason why soccer's called the most beautiful game. Now, here, a lot of people will say it's boring around the world. They'll sit there and love, like, this guy who made a dash to the ball just to knock it back like 5 feet to his defender to retain possession. Like what you were saying in football, like you had two duties to do. You had to sit there and, provide pressure in the right place while also making sure you weren't burned around the outside of the back end. And the same thing goes in hockey. Like, Duncan Keith won the Conn Smythe. That's the MVP for the playoffs. He won that tonight. I mean, Duncan Keith is just a ridiculously good athlete. The guy just does not get tired. He played 700 minutes over the, I don't know, maybe 19, 20, I forget right now off the top of my head, the 20 games of the playoffs. Like, he played like 50% of the minutes of the games for the Blackhawks.
Well, it says Keith was a unanimous selection for the Conn Smythe Trophy for playoff MVP after he finished with 21 points while playing more than 715 minutes in a grueling postseason.
Yeah, and his job, kind of like what you're alluding to, is he's supposed to be he's supposed to be a defenseman, so he's got to keep an eye, make sure he doesn't get burned, and he's got to minimize chances of his own goal. But he's also a defenseman who's really good at moving the puck. He's really good at shooting the puck. He's really good at being on the right. Like, he's wearing 6 hats at once, and he's playing the majority of the game. I mean, like, it was just an unbelievable, and he's doing it on skates on ice.
Right.
It's just an unbelievable effort. It's just an unbelievable display of athleticism. And if you want to go for toughness, back in 2010, when the Blackhawks won their first Stanley Cup since '61, they were playing the San Jose Sharks, and he was like covering the blue line, and someone from the Sharks went to go fire the puck up the ice. It caught him square in the face. He lost 7 teeth. They went in the back. They kind of stopped the bleeding, numbed him up. He was back on the ice like within 10 minutes. Of course, Chicago swept San Jose in that series, and they went on to win the Stanley Cup against the Flyers. So the guy's like doing his post-Stanley Cup interview, and he's talking like some old codger who you expect holding the banjo, like, "Cool, I'm just really happy to be out there playing the game," because he's missing all his teeth in his head. I mean, that's just amazing. Like, we live in an era where, like, like, I don't want to disparage football players because all of them can beat the crap out of me. But, like, a guy has a broken nose and he can't play, but I'm like, but you're wearing a helmet with a mask over the front of it. Like, these guys go out there and play with a broken foot, and their solution is tie the laces tighter and hope it holds. That's the amazing thing.
Yeah, it was crazy a couple games ago watching LeBron James land in the photographer's pit, and his head's busted open, he's bleeding, and there's a rule that if you don't shoot your free throw after you've been fouled, you're out for the entire game. So he had to be out there. Then they had to they just threw some glue into his bleeding head. That was how they fixed him. Here, we're gonna throw some glue in here. Just keep playing.
By the way, that's the most impressive rule the NBA has, is that they make you go out there and shoot the free. That's the toughest rule the NBA has. Well, good for them for having that.
No, and following up on what you were saying about Keith.
And how about and like I said, how about he's, for me, he's the enemy right now. But how about Curry back in the conference finals when, like, he went and landed on his head and shoulders, and then like you could see, like, just from the camera angle when they're helping him out, the guy did not know where he was. Like, I know what the concussion protocol is in the NFL. I don't think the NBA has one, because, like, if they did,
think so either. I don't think so either, because Klay Thompson got smacked. What did he get? Kneed in the face, and he's bleeding out of his ear, and then he's throwing up after the game, and he just keeps playing. It's like, whoa, okay, guys. The weirdest thing is I got my biggest concussion playing a game of softball a couple years ago. I caught a line drive. What was I playing? Third base, and someone was on third, and she started running home. I caught it. And she went, oh, crap, turned around, went to dive back onto third, but I went to dive at third, and she stumbled, and she fell right on my head. That was like all the years I played in football, that was kind of like the biggest stand up and go, okay, this feels
That's
weird.
why I always played outfield.
Yeah.
That's why I always played outfield, was for that reason. My biggest concussion ever in my life was at Tux's there in Bowling Green when I ran my mouth too much. So, but that's a different story for a different time.
Tux's. Yeah, and they call it Junction now. Well, actually, I haven't been back in years. Who knows what it's called now? But, yeah, that was a place famous for, apparently the rugby players worked there, and some dude got in a fight, and he got his head busted open, and so they poured 151 on it and held him down, and they used a staple gun and stapled his skull shut. Yeah, at least that's the urban legend.
I heard that story as well. I didn't witness it, but it could probably be true. It could probably be true. So
wait, hold on a second. Weren't you? Is it possible that you and I were there for orientation or something at the same time?
Oh yes, we were.
I totally forgot about that, but we ended up at Junction, and I think mind erasers may or may not have been involved.
No. They certainly were, because I remember, because I drove up there, and I forget where I was staying, but I remember you were staying in Offenhauer, and you were talking about there was a gigantic stain in the carpet of your temporary dorm room, and you were like, it was very clear that a bong had spilled in there from the stain. Now, I don't know how you would know that.
It was probably the smell.
But I remember talking about that. And so that's when we met that one girl who had the tattoo above her lady region, and it was of a monkey that reached down, and I guess I'll let the rest of that go. But yeah, we were there for orientation together, and then we ended up at, I remember, because we had to sit there and take placement tests the next day, and
yeah, that was a good idea.
Tuxes, and we had people buy us mind erasers, and considering like I was 18 and really didn't drink very much, in high school, because I was a nerd. That definitely did its job on me. And yet somehow I managed to place out of pretty much everything the next day. So
nice. No, if I recall correctly, it's been a few years since I've bartended, but I believe that the mind eraser is Kahlua and vodka and soda. I forget what order it's in, but by the time you don't even know what you drank, and it's very smooth, and then it hits you when you're not even. Man, I totally forgot about that, Craig. That's awesome. But hey, back to Keith here. It says he's the second defenseman in history to win the Conn Smythe and score the game-winning goal in the cup-clinching game. Bobby Orr also did it in 70 and 72. So this defensive-minded guy kind of turned into an offensive dude. Hell of a series for him, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Duncan Keith's always been that sort of a player. He's always been able to be a guy who has been able to, let me put it this way. Because I've done a lot of reading about hockey as well, too, and I don't know who to attribute this to, but I read an analogy that the reason why Bobby Orr was as great as he was is because since he was a defenseman, he was in the back, and you come up the ice, you could kind of read the situation the way a quarterback would in football, Like you see everyone in front of you. You can see like what sort of, positions they're in, where they're probably going to be going. And he was so good, he was able to adapt to that and be able to, react to that and either do what he had to do, like put the puck in a good place or make a good pass to score a goal or score a goal himself. And I think Duncan Keith holds a lot of the same attributes, and it's really, just like, most shifts in hockey run about 30 to 60 seconds, and for the fact that he was playing, over 30 minutes a game in these playoffs with all that responsibility on him, and that goal tonight, like, you always hear, you hear it in soccer, you hear it in hockey, you even hear it in basketball, follow your shot. He put that shot on, Patrick Kane, first of all, everyone's been like, Patrick Kane isn't showing up in these playoffs, which is a bunch of crap. That's another story. He sat there, held the puck long enough, was able to use his vision sauce to Keith was about to come into the zone. Keith put a good shot. He kept it low, so he knew there was going to be a rebound. I don't know if he realized the rebound was coming to him, but what he kept doing was charge the net, and sure enough, that nice, juicy rebound just sat there right in front of him. He had the upper right half of the net. He put it right in. I mean, it was an unbelievable performance for him throughout the series and throughout the entire playoffs. But, you know, as a Blackhawks fan and you know, watching Duncan Keith, that's the sort of thing you expect out of him. You know, it wasn't a surprise.
Now, I'm sitting here as a huge Cleveland Cavaliers fan. I couldn't bring myself to do a show after last night's game. I just called it a night immediately after. I had no words. I just didn't want to say it. But, you know, we're battling Golden State. 67 wins, one of the top 10 best regular season teams in the history of the NBA. So, you know, you're playing a very good team, fine. And so, I'm very familiar with the dynamic of, okay, at least theoretically, the Cavs are underdogs going into this, although the Cavs did have the best record in the NBA after their trade for Mozgov, Smith, and Shumpert. That being said, you know, Kyrie gets injured. He breaks his kneecap. He's out for the series. That happened in Game 1 against the Warriors. And then before that, Kevin Love in the first round had his arm ripped out, like you said, off air, in a WWE-style move by Kelly Olynyk. And, so the big three turns into a big one. So I can understand how realistically we can be the underdogs, even though we have the best player, the undisputed best player in the game going. What was the competition like? Because I know how I feel with the matchup with the Warriors is what I'm getting at here. Well, what did it feel like going up against Tampa Bay? Were they the best team coming out of the other conference? And do you feel, I don't want to say do you feel lucky, because obviously it's said and done. Do we feel lucky as a Buckeye fan that we beat Oregon? No, we beat them. But you know what? They were very strong coming into that game. Do you feel like Tampa Bay played up to their potential? Do you feel like you got a little lucky? Or do you think, you kind of put them in their place because they were clearly number two?
Well, and I think like you said off air, I think luck is something that comes from when you put yourself in the position to have good luck. If you're always making bad decisions, your luck is really not going to find you. That being said, yeah, Tampa Bay totally deserved to be there. New York Rangers were actually the favorites at one point in this playoffs, and Tampa Bay beat them, and they beat them by beating them a couple times on their home ice in Madison Square Garden. Tampa Bay reminds me a lot of where, like I was saying before, where Chicago was in 2009, 2010. Young team. I mean, Steven Stamkos, I think he's only 26. I think he's won a scoring championship. He's just a great player. The guy is so good. Ben Bishop, Tampa Bay's goalie, I think it's been coming out now because, that's another thing I love about hockey. They don't force the coaches to disclose the injuries. Like, I understand the reason why, because, fantasy hockey, no one really plays it. Fantasy football, fantasy basketball, there's so much money involved, the coaches are now forced to disclose all of these injuries. And hockey, it's like the most they have to say is upper body injury, lower body injury, something like that. Turns out he's playing with a torn groin. I mean, he's just a phenomenal young guy. Played at University of Maine. Their defenseman. And
he had 30 saves. 30 saves this game.
Oh yeah. The guy was out there playing his ass off, and was playing with a torn groin, and was struggling to get up.
And those hockey players, man, they're doing ridiculous pirouettes and splits, and they can tort their. I mean, I'm surprised.
He was doing
every
butterfly
goalie.
saves. He was doing butterfly saves with a torn groin. Like, me and you couldn't even do the splits once, let alone with. Yeah, forget it. Tampa Bay is a ridiculously good hockey team, and I mean, they're going to be. In the next couple days, the sports books in Vegas are going to come out with their odds for who's going to win next year, and Tampa Bay is going to be up there amongst the favorites because they're a really good team. I mean, they're young; they didn't have as much of experience. Maybe an argument can be made that they overachieved a little bit this year, but I mean, 5 one-goal games, and they lost Game 6 on the road 2-0 against a team that had 16 players who won 2 Stanley Cups and 7 players who, 16 players who had won 2 Stanley Cups and 7 players who had won 1 before the game. They were playing against and it's not the Blackhawks are old. They got a couple older guys. They got some really good younger guys. But no, Tampa Bay is a really solid team. They played extraordinarily well. And even though their coach is named John Cooper, he didn't make strategic errors to blow it against rivals who she definitely beat. State reference.
Well, first 3-game losing streak for Tampa Bay all season happens now. First 3-game losing streak of the season. Pretty bad timing.
I felt pretty comfortable that Chicago was at least going to make a real game out of it tonight just because of their experience, and they've closed people down, and they've been in tough spots. I mean, they were down in the series at one point and came back, but it's just like Tampa Bay is a real tribute. People will boo Gary Bettman. I don't particularly like him and some of his decisions and all that, but he's done a ton. I remember we must have been in middle school when Tampa Bay was a expansion franchise. I can remember them coming up. You weren't a hockey fan, you probably don't.
Correct.
But nowadays, like right now, you're in SoCal. There's 2 teams in Southern California. There's a team up north in San Jose, and all 3 of them have been pretty damn successful. The Ducks that's who the Blackhawks beat in the conference finals. They won a Stanley Cup a mere 8 years ago. LA won last year, and they had an off season this year, a bit of a drop off, but I guarantee you they're going to be back next year. San Jose's been strong. There's NHL players now who have been born in California, which is just unthinkable years ago, and not just like players who from California who made it to the NHL. I mean, out of active players, Brooks Orpik has been an Olympian, Stanley Cup winner with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's from California. Jason Zucker plays for a very tough and talented Minnesota Wild team. He's from California. I mean, I think there's something like maybe 15 active players in the NHL who were born and raised in California and learned to play hockey in California. And so the growth of the game, there was. I think I read something today that this game 6 was broadcast live in something like 130 countries. Now, granted, probably a lot of those countries would be the same as me and you of trying to watch like the Aussie Rules Football League Championship. Like we'd have to go out of our way to find it, but it was being broadcast there. It was being broadcast live to China, and China's been making a big push to get people involved in hockey because they're really trying to land like the Winter Olympics in 2022 or something, So like the explosion of this game over there has just been pretty remarkable. And like I said, it's not going to eclipse the NBA. It's not going to eclipse the NFL, but it's definitely holding its own in its own right.
Well, this is a big step for me to go ahead and now I'll tell you what, it'll be interesting if I ever do a World Cup show or a WNBA draft show. Lord help me if I ever go down this route. But like I said, I will raise my hand and I'm not gonna hide or pretend that I know more than I do. I literally know almost nothing about hockey, but obviously you do, and that's kind of what this is about. There are people that give a damn about hockey. I know several in my life, and I'm sure that some of our listeners also care. So I mean, it's been good bringing you on here to kind of talk about it a little bit. And, who knows? Maybe we could do a NHL preview show or something in the future if you ever felt so inclined. Or, I don't know. What do you guys get excited for? Do you pay attention to the draft? Do you get excited for the preview, for the beginning of a season? Or is it pretty much just playoff time? Like, what are the big times a year for you?
Well, to be honest with you, for the casual fan, the playoffs, and I've brought people to hockey games, and like you mentioned before, seeing it live, it's amazing. the NHL draft, yeah, there's some excitement about it amongst hockey circles. It's not like the NFL draft. Like, I wouldn't go see the NHL draft. I really don't care about a bunch of guys in a room who's going to walk up and shake hands with some guy and give him a jersey. I mean, like, I can watch that from home just fine. If the Browns, like, I would go, like, if the Browns, which likely will happen again this year, got the first round pick or the first draft pick. And
no, we're winning the Super Bowl this year. Take it easy. We're winning the Super Bowl this year.
You're right. You're right. With behind the steely-eyed generalship of who's our quarterback? Oh, that's right. McCown, right?
Yeah,
I think that's who it is.
Yeah, it's McCown, but I think Johnny Football will try to take it from him. I think Johnny Football might surprise us, and if not, whatever, we'll have to move past him. But I think he deserves another chance. But we digress.
But even with, like, the NFL draft, like, if the Browns were the first overall pick and somehow it was legal for the reincarnation of Jim Brown to, I know he's not dead, but, just bear with me on this, to be available for the draft.
You better not, hold on. You better not jinx Jim Brown. If he should pass between now and the draft, we're going to go back to the archives and say that Craig Doyle did it.
That's fine. What has he done for us lately? He's not putting on pads and winning us anything, so I don't care. But, so there is a following with it, and then, like, the preseason is all cool. I mean, the real hockey fans are there from the whole time, but definitely, it's the same as me. Do I actually care about basketball? Not at all. Do I want the Cavs to win? I really want the Cavs to win because I'm from Cleveland, I live in Cleveland, and we ain't had anyone win nothing around here. And, and I enjoy playing, but can I go on a basketball rant for a second?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Dude,
like,
come on, man.
I loved playing basketball growing up. I loved it. We had a basketball hoop in front of our house. We had our where I grew up. It was a very sparse area because I lived outside the city.
It was very sparse, and I knew your neighbors. Right.
But, they'd all come up. Yeah, exactly. And they all come over. We played basketball late at night. My parents would turn on the floodlights in the driveway. We played basketball. I loved playing basketball.
I did the same.
It's fun. It's
Loved
a good
it.
game.
Yep.
Great. I cannot stand watching the NBA because I'll sit there and watch this game. I could watch an exciting basketball game where these two teams are going back and forth. Maybe some team gets a lead and the other, all of a sudden, next thing you know, this other team seizes the momentum, quashes that lead, takes their own lead. It goes back and forth. And then you get to the last 2 minutes, and they all got 28,000 timeouts, and all of a sudden they're fouling everybody, and I'm watching guys shoot free throws. And it's the same thing I'm talking about with why I hate the shootouts in hockey and the penalty. I don't want to watch guys practice. And you know what free throws are? That's freaking practice. And I got to sit there and be like, oh, with all the pressure and it builds the drama. But it's fake to me. It's manufactured drama. It's not drama that was like, came about through the game. It's like, I got to foul, hack a shot, foul. Just, ugh. That's where the NBA loses me. But
the last couple minutes.
I hope the Cavs can pull this out, but I mean, it doesn't look good. But you know what? Tomorrow night, or actually for me tonight at home, LeBron's going to be there, and he's going to be sitting there playing, and he's played his heart out. And I know Cleveland gets a lot of crap because we gave him a bunch of crap when he left, and I don't even think that was uncalled for. I mean, he kind of did it in a douchey way, but, that's a different subject. And
hey, I rooted against him. I rooted against him big time. I was his big, and it was funny because
I did too.
The hate that I had for him, and I've said this on shows before, but I've never told you about this. But I watched this television show on Sundance Channel called Iconoclasts. Have you ever happened to catch an episode of that? Iconoclasts?
I've heard of it. I'm familiar with it. I'm not sure I've seen it.
Man, it's amazing. If you can check, I don't know if it's on like Netflix or if you can just do a search on your DVR and find it, but like they would pair people like Laird Hamilton, the professional surfboarder, up with Eddie Vedder, lead singer of Pearl Jam. They'd have Wyclef Jean with Venus Williams or Serena Williams. One of the Williamses is. And, they just take like a musician and it just and blend them together, and they'd have like an hour with them hanging out and all their conversations. Well, they had Dave Chappelle, the comedian, on with Maya Angelou, and Maya Angelou, famous civil rights poet laureate, and she was talking with Dave Chappelle.
Never heard of her.
Yep, never heard of her. I know why the caged bird doesn't know my name. But Dave Chappelle asked her, said, growing up and, being in the civil rights movement, seeing Martin getting killed, seeing JFK getting killed, and Malcolm X and Bobby Kennedy, she said, weren't you angry? Didn't you hate the people? And she said, oh, David, I yes, it was very sad, and it made me very angry, and it was horrible. But if you hold on to hate, it's like a cancer. It does nothing to the object that you're angry at, but if you hold on to it, it will destroy you. So no, David, I haven't forgotten, but I don't walk around with the hatred anymore. And I had it for LeBron because I felt like he bailed on us. I felt like after the economic collapse of, 07, 08, and everybody laughing at the Midwest and laughing at America, and everybody's down on their luck, and everything's just in financial turmoil. It was like, local boy from Akron in the Rust Belt where all the industry got shipped out of Cleveland with the steel mills going over to China. And you look at all this, and it's like, no, this could have been the Cinderella story. This could have been like a Rocky Balboa to kind of motivate a region, a state, a region, a country. Just say, hey, if they can do it, anybody can do it. Instead, he bailed. He sold us out, and he went for the flash and the fame, and he got the titles elsewhere. But I carried around the hatred for LeBron James until they got their first title. I was very, very, very happy when they lost to the Mavericks. But when LeBron got his first title, I could literally feel the weight of the hatred I'd been carrying around for him lift off my shoulders. It was like, okay, he got his title. Let it go, man. And I definitely still rooted against him, but I was able to get rid of the hate. And it was good because it was not a good feeling. But really, Craig, at the end of the day, I root for Laundry. I cheer for Laundry. And if he's wearing my laundry, I'm a fan of his. You talked about the Chicago Blackhawks when they traded away some of their best players, and I was like, yeah, I'm thinking here, oh, you mean like when the Indians traded CC Sabathia and Cliff Lee in back-to-back seasons as back-to-back Cy Young winners? Yeah.
Two Cy Young winners gone.
I can kind of relate to that. I get it. But, still living in Cleveland, Craig, what would it mean to the city of Cleveland to bring home a title? What do you think it would mean?
Well, first of all, I got to touch on the fact that, your hatred. I understand, you had a hatred, as you said, for LeBron. I mean, I hated him. Did I sit there and was I making a list and polishing up a sniper rifle? No, but it was.
Yeah, I didn't have addresses, and I didn't know. Okay, it's 7:15. That's when they usually go to school. No, not like that.
People talk about the way he did it, and that was douchey, and it was all. But also, I've been in the comedy business for a long time now. Failed comedian, now I run a club that usually makes the best managers. So, but at the end of the day, a comedy club is also kind of like the service industry, restaurant business. And I had a lot of people I knew, a lot of people who, if they weren't friends or at least friendly acquaintances who I'd see out various places, and I saw a lot of their places close right around the queue when LeBron left. I mean, they went from tons of season ticket sales and tons of people coming down there, so there was no one going down there. Now, is that all on LeBron? Is it his responsibility to make sure he's showing up so, the arena's full in a certain place or fulfill his career? No, I don't put that on him, but it didn't make him very likable to me. And kind of like what you said, we were all rooting hard. Not all of us, but a lot of people were rooting hard for him not to win. And then he did win, and he won again. And, but I think it did take a large chunk of, I think it took pretty big balls to sit there and be like, hey, I'm going back home to Cleveland, because even though you could pretty much know the reception was going to be favorable, I mean, he knew he also pissed off a lot of people here. And I think, it showed a sign of his maturity to be he addressed her off the bat. He did it without a lot of fanfare. And one of the first things he said was, "Yeah, I kind of did that wrong the first time." I think that was I think that mea culpa kind of, did a lot to kind of like mend the wounds. Whether they were right or wrong, there was a lot of people who were angry with him. It did a lot. And, one of the things I'm watching now is I remember his last series. What was it, 2008 was it when he left? When he against the Celtics, and people were like, oh, he quit. And then I saw, now they're down in the series, and I watched the guy the other night play his balls off. And I'm like going, hey, anyone going to say he's quitting on this? I mean, eventually I'm sure there's going to be some sort of douchebag fan that's going to, try to come up with some sort of like backlash against LeBron, but he's been nothing but stellar in this series. And I mean, there's no doubting that his heart's there. He's trying 100%. He's just doing it with depleted lineup. It's unfortunate, but that's sports.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, and a lot of people are saying, win or lose, LeBron's got to be the MVP of this NBA Finals, and that hasn't happened since, what was it, 69 when Jerry West got it or something. But, yeah, in the article, LeBron says, before anyone cared where I would play basketball, I was a kid from Northeast Ohio. It was where I walked, it's where I ran, it's where I cried, it's where I bled. It holds a special place in my heart. People there have seen me grow up. I sometimes feel like I'm their son. Their passion can be overwhelming, but it drives me. I want to give them hope when I can. I want to inspire them when I can. My relationship with Northeast Ohio is bigger than basketball. I didn't realize that 4 years ago. I do now. And this was such an amazing article, and yeah, I absolutely remembered as soon as this news came in. Jay Crawford, I remember Jay Crawford was reading on ESPN, also from Bowling Green, Ohio, Bowling Green State University, rather. But, yeah, I mean, I just remember, my eyes welling up a little bit. It was a very proud moment. I took the day off work. I did a radio show about it, and I was like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. And, the last thing anybody could accuse LeBron of this time is giving up. He's given more than everything he has. And, I'll tell you what, nobody said that this was going to be easy.
He's playing hurt.
Yeah.
He's clearly playing hurt.
What do you think is hurt on him, other than everything? It's incredible. The guy has been banged up so much.
I think every athlete who gets to that point, I'm sure Curry's feeling pain. I'm sure like every person on each team, is feeling a bit of pain. There's some injuries going on, but he's legitimately hurt. Somewhere in the lower body, one of the legs or the knees is actually hurt, and he's still playing. I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me. And he's still going out there and being like, almost a double-double before halftime, and putting like 40 points in a losing effort. I mean, yeah, it's no one's gonna be able to blame LeBron on this one, and hey. It's going to be an easy out for like Cavs fans to sit there and be like, we had all these injuries, but Golden State's a really good team. They're really, really, really good. So, even if you had a full strength Cavs team, it was going to be a task to beat them. But now, hey, I'm hoping tomorrow that, the Cavs can make something happen at home to force Game 7, give themselves at least a chance, at least a chance to sit there and seize it. But, as much as I want them to win, I just don't think this is going to be the year, and I really hope I'm wrong. And I'm usually wrong when it comes to sports prognostication, so that might be a good sign.
Okay, good. Then also predict that in the sport of gambling, I'm not going to. I don't know. I was going to go for something there, but I'm going to bail. And here's what I had to say about it: is fine. Everything's stacked up against us. Yes, the chosen one, the king. Ohio's favorite son. Leads this charge with the big three. And I'm going to paraphrase a little bit off of some dude's thing that he put on Facebook. I don't even know who to attribute it to, but it's basically, how else would you expect this to play out? The big three, two of his brothers are slain on the way to go get the ring. It's literally like a Lord of the Rings kind of deal, and the king, the chosen one, has to go do on his own. All of his brothers have been slain. And it's like, if you're going to break a 51-year curse, wouldn't this be the way to do it? It would take an absolutely Herculean effort from the best player on the planet back up against the wall in 2 elimination games. Isn't this exactly the way that you break a curse? And when you think about that Nike commercial where it's, 1, 2, 3 together, all in, or Cleveland, and I don't know, I'm paraphrasing that and butchering it as well. But I mean, it's about the city. This is all the buzzer beater against the Bulls. It's all been about this. LeBron, in the final line of his I'm Coming Home article, says, in Northeast Ohio, nothing is given. Everything is earned. You work for what you have. I'm ready to accept the challenge. I'm coming home. I mean, this is the Cleveland Cavaliers season. It didn't play out exactly perfect, but come on, does anything play out perfect in Cleveland? I just,
No.
I fully expect us to win 2 games in a row, and I just expect it to happen. I would love to be up 3-2. I don't like being down 2-3. Don't get me wrong. And yes, I'll say Golden State is a very good team. Steph Curry has some amazing shots. That's their bench is pretty deep. That's cool, fantastic. I just, in my heart of hearts,
that's precisely the thing. Their bench is pretty deep, whereas our bench is now our starters. That's what's hurting us.
Delhi playing 35 minutes a game, like, oh boy, okay.
I will say that guy spends more. Like, I never thought any guy could spend any more time on the floor than Anderson Varejao. And then we got Delhi, and dear God, that guy dives at everything.
He's all over the place.
It's amazing.
Yeah, well, he's had a couple of really important games for us, and we're gonna need a little bit more out of everybody to make it happen. But 2 games left in the entire season. You can rest when it's over. It's a minimum of 1 game, maximum of 2, and I'm really pulling for them.
For them to win it, they're gonna need J.R. Smith to sit there and just all of a sudden become on fire. They're going to need Delhi to keep being Delhi, and I don't know if it was from The Onion, but it was something like Dellavedova broke like every bone in his body, but still plans to play the next game.
Yeah.
You're going to need that sort of effort. You're going to need Shumpert to do. You're going to need Shumpert to do what Shumpert does, which I'm not even precisely sure about, but he does things.
Really important professional NBA style stuff with that Shumpert.
Yeah, I think they need to put in Kendrick Perkins to sit there and maybe knock somebody across the head once or twice, just every once in a while, just to say, hey, what's up? But I mean, honestly, as much as I want the Cavs to win, I honestly think that it's a better probability if the Browns re-sign Spurgeon Wynn and he leads them to the Super Bowl. I mean,
So you're saying there's a chance?
I read you.
Dumb and Dumber 2. Isn't there a sequel of that coming out? Didn't I see that somewhere?
Of Dumb and Dumber 2?
Yeah, Yeah, I think there's a sequel. That's not involving Matt Damon. Anyway, I digress. Now we're getting into. We could talk Jurassic Park while we're at it with $500 million on its opening weekend.
I haven't seen a movie since Goodfellas. That's the most recent movie I've seen. If you want to talk about Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, I'm your guy. But nope, don't know anything other than that.
That's actually pretty impressive.
Okay, I actually saw The Departed.
All right. I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. I love that opening line, and I think that's where LeBron James is at. They asked, why are you so confident heading into game 6? And he said, because I'm the best player on the planet. I'm the best player in the world. That's why I'm confident. And it's like, yeah, it's a little cocky, but what else is he going to say? He really is the best player on the planet. And it's like, you know what? If somebody's going to come in and impose his will, guess what? He plays on our team, not theirs. I know that they're deeper. Yeah. I know that they had a great regular season. I know they're healthier, but you know what? There's something about that. I want my environment to be a product of me. Like you said, the game of basketball is unlike most other team sports where it can be so one-on-one. And I think if LeBron wants to, I think he could score 60 points. I really do think he could score 60. And you know what? Hey, man, back up against the wall. That's all we got. So we'll see how it plays out tomorrow. Hopefully your prognostication will be wrong. And give me your early season favorites in our last 30 seconds here. Who's going to play for the Stanley Cup next year?
I think off the top of my head, as much as I'd love to say the Hawks, they're up against salary cap issues. I think it'd be a pretty good bet to see Los Angeles out of the West. Definitely Anaheim is going to be a factor. Minnesota has definitely gotten better over the years, so I think those are the three teams you can see out of the West. Out of the East, it's probably pretty easy. New York Rangers, solid team. Henrik Lundqvist in goal. You're always going to be able to have a chance at winning with a goalie like that. And like I said, Tampa Bay was so impressive in the series. You can't discount them. So, I couldn't tell you one team on each side, but I think those would be good bets.
Well, hey, Craig Doyle, I'll tell you what, man. If the unthinkable should happen and we shock the world and I end up back home for a parade down in downtown Cleveland, let's have a round of mind erasers, shall we?
I think that would be in good order, sir. It's been too long.
Excellent. Craig Doyle, follow him on Twitter. He's at @CraigDoyle. Everybody, thank you so much for your time. We're out.
And this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is the NewAmericanMedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. There are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed, because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats. They know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. Well, it doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.